Hi, happy Friday. We are live again. I'm just waiting for Pamela to come on, and today we're going to be chatting about postpartum massage, but specifically how and when you might want to be including newborns in your treatment sessions. So I am just going to hang out a second to have Pamela pop on, and once she's here, we can dig in. And if anyone is watching live and wants to drop questions in the chat, or if you ever want to actually come on to the call, just let us know. And this is an opportunity for real conversation in real time. So let me just see. Not yet for Pamela. Okay. So yeah, I'm curious how many of you already have a policy about this, if you kind of take it, case by case or just by request. Let's see, here she is. It says she's adding, so I'm just hanging out here for a second, waiting for her to come on. It's just flashing adding. I'm like, come on, Facebook, how hard can it be? Also, my light is hurting my eye a little bit. It's still just flashing adding. The last couple of, let's see, I approved this. This is so strange. Let's see. Bring them on video. So it says she's requesting me. I'm hitting allow her on, and then it's asking me to send her a request back. So silly. Pamela, can you hear this? It just keeps asking me every time I go in to approve your request to come on, it asks me to send you a request. So I don't know if you have a request pending that you can just accept from me, but I'm going to try this again. Yeah, it's only allowing me to send a request. And then it says unable to add guests. They can't join your broadcast at this time. And all the other times it's done weird stuff like this, we just keep pressing buttons and then eventually she comes on. So, okay. I just like that's our hide or just keep pressing buttons until it works. Was it doing the same thing to you?
So I ended up sending 3 requests. Before we even started, it said you're invited to go live on camera. I hit accept.
Yeah.
Then nothing happened. So I hit send request. Nothing. It took until just the second before it actually came through.
Yeah, so strange because I saw your request coming through and then there was a button that says approve. I hit approve and then it just said either cancel or send request. And I'm like, what are we doing? Just sending requests back and forth? I'm like,
and at one point it was just completely black and I was like, do I close it out and start over? I don't know.
Yeah, it was just like flashing adding for a while and it was just like,
it just seems like,
are you really?
There must be a better way.
I don't know. Well,
hello.
But hello, I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad we made it on a Friday.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is an interesting topic. It can be a sweet topic, but I think it's definitely like a logistical piece that depending on what you're working with and what your environment is like as a therapist and what your clientele is like, it's certainly worth considering So I don't know where you want to start with this. Maybe we
Yeah.
could talk about the pros and the cons of having newborns in the treatment room, and then we can talk a little bit about what we do and what some other options are depending on what
Yeah.
the environment is like. Does that sound good?
I love it. Yeah, let's just do that, pros and cons, and then I would love to hear like how it works in your clinic, and I can talk
Hmm.
about what I do and yeah, what I've seen work. But yeah. So, I mean, I think we've talked about this in other times that we've gotten together about getting people back in for postpartum can be challenging, right?
Yeah.
It's hard because then they've got this newborn and they've got family and it's just seems more challenging.
Yeah.
So inviting them in with a newborn can make the difference, I think, of like, if they have, even if they bring someone with them, even if they have childcare and they bring grandma or they bring dad, um, it can just be a way where they don't have to leave their newborn, right? They don't have to go as long without breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And they feel a little more secure having their baby close by.
Yeah.
So those are, I think, big draws for someone who really is doing the full-on attachment parenting, really wants their baby close. Or maybe
Yeah.
it's really early, if it's just been a week or, sometimes
100%.
even just a few days. Sometimes they're like, when can I come in?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And do you do house calls in your practice or just
I I don't anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I know. There's only so many hours and you're busy, so I get
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are all great, benefits. And then I guess, the only cons I would say is that sometimes it can be difficult to keep the spotlight on the mom,
For sure.
which is such a huge benefit of this work.
Yeah.
Um, And sometimes it can be really nice for the mother's nervous system to have a minute where she's not responding to every coo and I say that with a lot of compassion because sometimes it's like, yeah, we wish that were possible, but we're also not wired that way. Like we are biologically, you
Yeah.
know, honed into one another. And so it's also not very natural for mothers and babies to be separated. But if there is someone that can be with the baby for an hour, I generally tend to recommend only hour appointments for
Yeah.
early postpartum for that reason, because newborns are not going to be able to tolerate a much longer span of time.
Yeah.
But if they have someone that they can trust to just be with baby for an hour and really get the benefits of just being able to tune in with her own nervous system and her own breath, I think that there are a lot of benefits to that.
Mhm.
Um, but some of that can be so personal, and
Yeah.
just maybe what the birth was like, maybe what her personality is like, what is that baby like, what are their needs like? So
Yes. All of that. All of
yeah,
that. Yeah. And I've done plenty of sessions where mom's brought baby and it starts out great, but then baby wakes up or baby's nursing and she spends the majority of her time, trying to get comfortable with baby on her or baby next to her or nursing or
yeah,
changing a diaper or, whatever.
yeah,
Um, and that can be, while it's great to give her lots of time and space to do those things, you again we're limited by appointments,
of course,
right?
yeah.
And keeping into this boundary of like you can't just have someone in your room for the whole day to get this one
No,
hour
you
massage. It
can't.
doesn't
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
So often it goes really well, but there are occasionally times where it's just like, well, you might have gotten 30 minutes of good body work, so
yeah, yeah. And I can say in my practice, we tend to encourage house calls if possible. Now, clearly, that's not always possible, right? And because the price tag is obviously higher than if they come in.
yeah.
But I do think that that can be really nice because it's like they can breastfeed right up to the moment that we are like setting up, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like they can be sitting nursing while we're like literally putting sheets on the table, like right up to that very moment. They can
Hmm.
do the handoff, hopefully to somebody that is, there and loving and, all of that. Or, baby might just fall asleep if there
Right.
isn't somebody there. Um, but yeah, I always encourage my clients, if possible, to like have someone to be with the baby.
Yeah.
And then yeah, usually if that's the case and they can nurse right up until the start time, then we can get a full hour
Mm-hmm.
of time. 90 minutes is real questionable. 90
Right.
minutes is usually where we end up with a baby on the table with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorites are when grandma comes or dad comes
Yeah.
and they take the baby. Like
Yeah.
I have a park right downstairs, there's like a little splash pad for the toddler. Like they
Yeah.
can take the baby and go out of the office so mom knows baby's close by if
Oh,
they need
nice.
her.
Yeah.
But, so those are like the most ideal. But I mean they're I've also had babies in car seats where I'm like rocking with a foot while I'm doing body work.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's
I've worn a baby before while giving a
yeah.
massage. Like that's and that was with a doula client. Like there was a lot of
I'm sure there's a lot
rapport
of
and
trust and
yeah,
yeah.
there, and it was
Right.
very sweet.
Mhm.
Um, but that there is a certain level of flexibility that
Yeah.
is required in postpartum sessions, and especially if a newborn is nearby. But these are things that you have to think about as a therapist. Like, what are you game for? What is
Yes.
your environment game for? When I was just me in my practice, I could have a lot more flexibility in terms of if we brought a newborn into the room, and yeah, maybe you're massaging and rocking a car seat
Right.
with your other foot or something like that. And then if the baby cries, you're not disturbing anybody other than the mom. But
Mhm.
now I have like a full space there's 5 treatment rooms, there's a lot of different services going on,
Yeah.
and just a baby crying is not ideal. Like
Mhm.
this is a space where moms are maybe trying to like take a minute away from that, and so I no longer have babies in the treatment room inside of the studio, but we do sometimes have babies and carriers with another adult outside, like in the waiting room or
Mhm.
anything like that. And then, if they cry, sometimes like they're fine to just like go outside and like walk around a little bit. And that's usually fine, and we would never, keep a mom from her baby if it really felt like she is the only one that baby
Yeah.
needs at that moment. We would just, make it happen or stop the session and have her come out and nurse if that's what the baby needs. But for the most part, it works well. And then yeah, I mean, in those early days, I just always try and recommend the house calls just because they're in their own space. We can
Mhm.
literally like tuck them into bed and leave,
I
you
know.
know?
Well, and yes, because that can turn into a really beautiful postpartum session, right? Where
Yes.
you can offer honestly a lot more support than, you know,
Yeah.
if you can make that work. Yeah, and alcohol is ideal. So I've played with this idea before of like having postpartum and newborns come in like one day a week, a specific day. So that if
That's
babies
a great
cry,
idea.
then
Yeah.
the other therapist so I do have 2 treatment rooms, and I've had the pelvic floor PT with me for on and off for many years.
Great.
That it's not bothering somebody or
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's also
And
a really
then
great idea.
yeah, and then I know some spaces have like a grandma kind of come in once a week or something and hold babies for that morning that they offer the postpartum sessions or um just have somebody else hands on around. But and then
I mean, it's so sweet, and maybe it's just because I'm in California, but I'm just like, that's like a big liability to me, like
oh
in my
right,
mind
yeah.
of, who
Yeah.
who is
Yeah, I
holding the
mean,
babies. And it's sad to
yes.
even have to think that way, right? Because it really truly used to be a village, and that
Yeah.
there was many people that you could very easily hand your baby over to and just trust that you can have a minute to recharge. But it is interesting to me that even yeah, this thought like popped into my head, and I think probably
Mhm.
also like I said, being in California, which is such a litigious state, so
Right, right.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm in a pretty small, feels very community
that's
oriented.
so nice.
So
Yeah.
I think most people would be like, oh yeah, she can hold my baby, cool. But
Yeah, totally.
um and then I just was seeing somebody pop up I don't was that in our group, but someone was showing this carrier. a cradle, right? Basically to have in the treatment room, where you have something in the treatment room with you that, could serve as like that extra hand of, keeping baby comfortable while that mama gets her massage.
Yeah, those are all great ideas. And is this something that is like an electric thing that is like keeping the baby rocking while you can keep your hands on
Yeah.
mom? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a great idea too.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, these are all like really really great ideas. And again, there's no right answer here. You really have
mhm,
to, it's such an adaptive thing. And
yeah,
it can really depend on your environment.
for
But these
sure.
are all,
And it does take being flexible, right? You
yeah.
really, and that's not for everybody to be able to do that much bending and
Yeah.
going with the flow.
Now, have you ever had clients where it, because I'm also thinking like if you bring newborns into the treatment room, does it always stay newborns, right?
Oh, yeah.
Then is it the
Right.
toddler? Is it the 5-year-old sitting in the corner with the iPad? And because it can
Yeah.
very easily translate into
So,
kids of all ages, and maturity
mhm,
levels are welcome into the treatment room. So that's
right.
also something to think about. What is that boundary for you in your practice?
So it's interesting you brought that up. I do have one particular client right now,
Mhm.
actually, who is a fertility client of mine. And this summer, she's been watching her cousins' children. Two of her cousins from DC, Atlanta have had their little girls here with her. She's like
Mhm.
acting as nanny.
Yeah.
And they're like 4 and 5, and she's brought them several times now,
Mhm.
with their iPads and their snacks.
Mhm.
And because it's just me most of the time here, it's been fine,
Yeah.
you know. But if there had been someone else or other treatments going on, it wouldn't have been okay. And she kind of just showed up with them. I didn't have a heads up, so
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's something that we have to be aware of, that
yeah,
message that children are
yeah,
welcome. Sometimes you can, I've been to like many doula events and things like that where they'll say, babies in arms are
for
welcome.
sure. Yeah. Hmm.
And that to me feels like a nice phrasing. It's very clear. Like if your baby is not, staying in your arms and they are able to get down and crawl and walk, and that's the cutoff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because
That's it.
that
Hmm.
makes a much different dynamic. Yeah.
Yes, that is a nice way to phrase it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope that, yeah, this is getting some people's wheels turning on what's the line for your practice, and how much
Mhm.
flexibility can you offer? How much do you want to offer? How distracting might it be to you? Would it take away from your ability to, tune in and focus on the woman in front of you? And um, you know, that can be different for different therapists, and just finding like what is true for you, and going from there. So
Yeah.
if anybody is watching live and has questions or wants to chime in on anything, please feel free. um, but yeah, this is definitely something that I think is worth thinking about.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to think too. I've definitely had people ask. I don't think that I have ever had somebody show up unannounced with a child.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. And it is interesting because I've seen different practices make it work, and
Hmm.
there is one of my chiropractor friends who specializes in pediatrics. Like her front desk people will hold babies while, mom or dad are getting adjusted, and it's
Hmm.
very family friendly, but it's also relatively brief compared
I was
to
gonna say that's a
the time.
quicker, yeah,
Yes.
it's a much
Yes.
shorter time,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe they're in there 5 or 10 minutes, or
Yeah.
yeah, that can make a big difference
It
for
can make a
sure.
big difference. So,
Mhm.
yeah, just really thinking about what is your setup like? Will newborns impact, other people trying to
Mhm.
receive care? Because, there's the perhaps the concern of like, oh, if I don't accommodate newborns, I might lose this client. But then there's potentially the other concern of like, if you have newborns crying in your office, you might lose the other clients who are coming in for a sanctuary.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to see what makes sense and weigh it all out. But I do think that a certain level of awareness, a certain level of flexibility can be great if you're open to offering house calls. House calls can be very adaptive. And I think I've mentioned this before on calls, but I always like to like leave the feet in my back pocket in case, like I leave them towards the end of the postpartum session in case the
Uh-huh.
baby wakes up and the mom needs to nurse, then I can do reflex points on her feet, just like a great
Yeah.
foot massage. And that way I'm not, if she's nursing, I'm not like right over her. It gives you like a little bit of space, gives her like a tiny bit of privacy, not
Yes.
truly, but it just gives a little bit of respectful distance, I think, without requiring her to stop receiving touch. So,
Right. That's the difference because you can
yeah.
still be doing something for her
Yes.
and she can still be functioning as new mom. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I might have also mentioned this on a call too, but I think it might be worth reiterating, like I'm just thinking about when I was 1 month postpartum, somebody on my team, Angelica, came and gave me a session, and it started to creep just over that 60-minute mark. And my mom, who was
Uh-huh.
with my newborn, was like, "He needs a boob," and
Uh-huh.
I was able to sideline nurse,
Mhm.
and it really didn't, he like so little at 4 weeks old, just like tucked
Yeah.
right in.
Yeah.
I was able to latch him, and then I was still able to get all of like my neck work, my shoulder work done. It was wonderful. But I also know that even being able to sideline nurse is a learned skill, and
Uh,
that not everyone is going to be able to do that. So I just, maybe like if there are therapists listening, just to know that like you can't assume that every mom, especially a first time mom, is going to be able to do that, especially in the first weeks, because sometimes it's really like you have to get like this perfect setup and the
right.
football hold, and you're sitting up and your elbows are supported, and you're just trying to get the hang of this thing. Like, even though breastfeeding is quote unquote natural, it's hard,
No, there is a learning curve,
there's a
right?
learning curve.
Yes, for mom and baby.
Both.
And it's interesting that you brought that up. Yeah, so that is typically when I have newborns in the treatment room, mom brings baby. That is typically what happens, that she'll be in sideline and
Hmm.
baby's on the table with her and everybody's comfy cozy. We get the perfect positioning. But it is true, not everybody might be able to just do that right away, right off the
Yeah.
bat. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to mention that because you might be migrating off of the massage table to her bed, right?
Yeah.
She's gonna get all her stuff set up, and then sometimes I'm sitting on the edge of her bed and I have her foot in my lap, and
Yeah.
sometimes she's nursing and she's just like it's still in her like nice zone, which is great. Sometimes she's really like focused and talking to the baby, and they're kind of doing their thing, but she's still receiving the benefits of the touch. So um, I just want to kind of paint that picture of what it can look like and how flexible and dynamic it can be. I
Yes.
think um, this might also be true for you even in your in-office sessions, but it's definitely true, I think, for our house call, especially because we're in their environment, and
Right.
so it's not uncommon for especially like newly postpartum moms to just like not be aware of time. Like they
Oh,
barely know
yeah.
what day it is, let alone what time it is, what time their session is starting.
Yeah.
And so I think just to normalize that might be her state of mind, and to just don't be shocked if you need to give her a little bit of guidance of like, I want to be flexible, and I've built in a little bit of cushion, but we are starting to get into your table time, and I want to give you,
Yeah.
all the attention that you deserve. And she'll be like, oh,
Yes.
okay, yes, let me get on the table, because time feels weird in that early postpartum time.
Yeah, that's a really good point because they are not spatial aware,
Yeah.
and it gets fuzzy. And then, yeah, and you really need to hold that boundary. Also, it made me think of I remember for each of my kids, that newborn stage, I would be okay for a certain amount of time, either being away from them or being, like doing something. But then at a certain point, I had like intense anxiety. Like I had to be with them right that second.
Yeah.
Right. So like, again, as a therapist, holding that space, that boundary for the time,
Yeah.
where you think that you want to give them lots of extra and going over might be nice to do, but not necessarily. Like you need to help them stay in that parameter of what they're planning on, or whoever's watching the kids or whatever it is, right? Like
A
holding that
hundred
space.
percent. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that those are good things to name even before you start your session. So you can say
Yeah.
things like, my intention is to put the spotlight on you and your healing as much as is possible. But I do completely acknowledge that, you and your baby are still a unit, even though your bodies are now separate. You're still biologically, honed into each other's nervous systems. And so there might be some sounds that you hear that are going to like arouse your nervous system. And if you, for whatever reason, feel like you need your baby, at any point you can tell me that we can pause, we can stop completely, we can end it sooner than you were anticipating, but just like really giving it to her and just saying like you are in charge. And if you feel like your anxiety coming up, um, you know, we want to listen to that and listen to your body. And sometimes
Yeah.
just naming that will make her
I'll
just be
just,
like, okay, now I can actually relax.
yes, just saying it out loud can give her the space to let her let
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
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 So those are all, yeah, really sweet and unique things that happen when you're doing, maternity work. And it is really dynamic. And in some ways, I think that it can challenge therapists to, um, how much good work can you do under imperfect conditions or under unpredictable conditions? Because there's nothing like a newborn to create some
Yes.
unpredictable conditions.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that, I've had to talk to a lot of my therapists about that as well, of like, well, I want to do this and I want to do this, and I had this plan for it, and I'm just like, it, that's okay. You have to be able to let that go and to know that you just showing up, right? And you're going to be of the best and the highest service, working with whatever is presenting itself in this, like in the
Yeah.
present moment. It really is a practice of being present with what is actually happening right now, and not necessarily the plan that you created for that person, even if it was
Right.
done with like the best,
Yeah.
intention for her healing.
Yeah. The expectations can really get in the way of what the potential could be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also for new therapists just a sense of reassurance that you can still do a lot under imperfect conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's something to be said about being flexible, right? Like just being able to be in that space. Yeah.
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 Well, this was lovely, as it always is. And yeah, if anybody, I guess kind of like last invitation, if anybody wants to either pop on or put anything in the chat. I don't think yeah, okay. I was just making sure that I'm actually checking it and seeing it.
Yeah.
Um, but if there's other things that come up after, this recording is put up, we're happy to jump back on and answer questions, and always happy to, answer other subjects that people are curious about. And I think we've got some other good stuff coming up this month as well. So
We do. Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
We'll talk about that soon.
Yeah. Sounds good. So I hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Yes. Happy Friday. It is 8/8 for you
Yeah.
guys. So, all
It's a
right.
good day.
See you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.